I remember the first time I drove alone through the desert at night. The sky was endless, heavy with stars that seemed to lean closer than usual, as if listening. The two-lane highway stretched like a ribbon of black glass, the headlights cutting through a pale veil of dust and fog. The radio whispered static, no station clear. Every song dissolving into silence before it reached the first note. The air inside the car felt still, almost too still, as though time itself had paused in the heat. The desert has a strange way of holding secrets. Shapes move at the corner of your vision. Lights linger far too long on the horizon. And in that vast emptiness, you begin to wonder if the road belongs to you at all, or if you are merely crossing into someone else's territory. That night, I remember the faint hum, like electricity under the earth. I slowed the car, unsure if I had heard it or imagined it. Then, out in the distance, something shifted. A flicker in the sky, hovering just above the cactus line. A light that was not a star, not a plane, and not anything I had words for. My hands tightened on the steering wheel, and a thought pressed into my mind like a warning. I never should have stopped the car. The desert stretched endlessly. Night had draped itself over the road like a wet blanket. Cool wind brushed my skin, carrying dust and the faint scent of something dry old. I was alone in the car. The hum of the engine was steady, almost comforting, until the radio crackled. At first, just static, then a whisper, soft and wavering, threading itself into the hum. It was faint, like someone brushing their fingers across the glass of a window. I leaned closer, curious. The whisper rose and fell in rhythm with the engine, sinking to the pulse of the tires against asphalt. It felt alive. I tried to turn the dial. Nothing changed. The voice, or whatever it was, followed, curling around my ears, slipping under my skin. The desert seemed quieter now. Even the wind paused, as though waiting. The horizon stretched pale and endless, the moon just a thin sliver in the sky. I drove slower. The whispers grew more insistent, pressing against my thoughts. I couldn't understand the words, but the feeling was clear. Pull over. Stop. Listen. I felt it in my hands, tight on the wheel, sweaty, shaking. I spotted a shoulder in the road ahead, the faint outline of gravel. I eased the car over. The whispers faded for a heartbeat, and then headlights, bright and sudden, cutting through the dark like a knife. My heart jumped. I turned to look, expecting another car. Nothing. The road behind me swallowed the light. Empty. The whispers returned, softer now, almost coaxing. I pressed my palm against the glass, breath fogging the window. The hum of the engine seemed to answer them, steady and deep. Shadows shifted in the rear-view mirror. I thought I saw movement, pale and quick. But every time I blinked, it was gone. A rustling noise from the desert. Dry, quick. The gravel under the tires crunched as I inched forward. A cold touch grazed my neck. I stiffened. The headlights flickered again, far off, or maybe just in my mind. The air smelled metallic, sharp, like old wires sparking. I tried to speak, but my voice caught in my throat. Everything was still. The whisper softened to a sigh, brushing my ears. The road stretched on, empty, silent, yet alive. I wanted to leave. The engine begged for motion, but something rooted me there, pressed deep into my chest. I closed my eyes, listened to the hum, the whispers, the quiet crunch of gravel fading into the night. The desert was watching. I could feel it, just beyond the reach of the headlights. And then, a final whisper, almost tender, almost human. A name, or maybe a warning. I didn't move. I couldn't. The road lay empty ahead. Behind, only darkness. I waited. The whisper faded, and I was alone again, except for the hum. The road stretched past a dry lake bed. Night had deepened, swallowing the horizon. Air smelled of dust and something bitter, like metal left in the sun. I drove slowly. The engine's hum was steady, comforting, yet hollow. The desert pressed close, dark and silent. Above, stars scattered across the sky. But then, 3 pale lights appeared. Far off at first, small, delicate, almost fragile. They moved together, forming a perfect triangle. Slow, deliberate, against the constellations. They glided with a calm precision. I blinked. The shape remained. A shiver crawled up my spine. The triangle was impossibly bright, pale as moonlight but sharper, sharper than any star. It hovered just beyond the reach of the sky I knew. I slowed the car, breath shallow. Wind whispered through the cracked window. Dust swirled around the tires, settling over the still lake bed like ash. The lights blinked out instantly, gone, as if they had never been there. Silence followed. Thick, heavy. It pressed into the cabin, wrapped around my chest, held my breath hostage. The road was empty. The engine's hum felt too loud. The desert seemed to be listening, waiting. I wanted to look away. I wanted the triangle gone from my mind. But I couldn't. A cold pulse ran across my skin. The air smelled faintly of ozone, sharp, electric, lingering behind the memory of the lights. My hands tightened on the wheel. Something shifted in the shadows beyond the lake bed. Movement, or the imagination of a mind straining in the dark. I could feel eyes, or the absence of them, following every inch of the car. The moon's pale glow spilled across the sand, revealing faint ripples of dry earth. Nothing else, yet the sense of being watched lingered, clinging like fog to skin. I exhaled slowly, tasting the dust in the air. Each heartbeat echoed in my ears, matching the rhythm of the triangle, though it was gone. The memory of it burned bright, impossible to shake. The road curved. Tires crunched over gravel. The silence remained. I tried to speak. My voice came out thin, swallowed by the desert. I whispered my own name, half to hear it, half to remind myself I was alone. The sky was empty now. Stars scattered, indifferent. The triangle had vanished. Yet I could still feel a hovering just beyond perception, a rustling, soft, distant. Wind or something moving along the sand. I didn't turn. I couldn't. The hum of the engine was the only anchor. My skin prickled. The desert stretched infinitely. I kept driving. The triangle, or its memory, followed. Invisible, silent, watching. The horizon held pale light from somewhere beyond the sky. And I kept moving. Quiet, slow, alone. The road had narrowed, folding into shadows. Night pressed close, heavy with the scent of dust and asphalt. The air was still. I spotted the rest area before I reached it. Empty concrete under a pale moon, metal tables twisted with rust. Power lines hung slack above, severed, lifeless. Yet the vending machine glowed faintly. Soft, blue light spilling onto cracked pavement. It hummed quietly, impossible in a place this dead. I stepped closer. Each footfall kicked up dust, sharp against the cool night air. The hum felt warmer now, almost welcoming. The glass reflected movement. A figure, or something like me. Pale, still, too solid to be only light. I blinked, moved to the side. The reflection lingered. Not mine. It tilted its head slowly, just a fraction, observing. I froze. The hum of the vending machine filled my ears, merging with my heartbeat. A rustle of paper, trash shifting across the concrete, made me jump. Cold wind brushed my neck, smelling faintly of ozone. The figure did not move, not even a blink. I circled the machine, cautious, breath shallow. Each step felt heavier, dragging against the quiet night. The reflection followed perfectly. The air smelled faintly of metal and sweat. I reached out, fingertips grazing the glass. The figure mirrored me exactly, down to the trembling of my fingers. I leaned back. The vending machine light flickered, soft and irregular. For a heartbeat, it seemed to pulse like a lung, alive. I tried to speak, to ask something. My words caught my throat. The night swallowed them before they formed. Shadows gathered under tables. Rusted trash cans tilted, spilling emptiness across the pavement. I could hear something soft, almost deliberate, footsteps that weren't mine. The reflection did not move away. Even when I stepped to the edge of the glow, it remained, pale and waiting. I felt the weight of its gaze pressing to the glass, into my chest, into my thoughts. The hum softened, almost tender. I exhaled slowly, tasting dust in the air. Everything else was still. A distant vehicle passed. Far off, its tires crunching over gravel. I flinched. The reflection didn't flinch. I walked around in front of the machine. Nothing. No one behind the glass. Just a faint glow, the hum, the lingering image. I took a step back. The reflection lingered anyway. Soft, patient, unnervingly calm. The wind shifted. Cold air brushed my face, carrying the scent of rust and dry concrete. A faint whisper of movement followed me, though I saw no one. I exhaled again, slower this time. Dust settled on my shoes. The hum faded almost imperceptibly. I didn't touch the machine again. I turned back toward the car. Shadows stretched long and thin across cracked concrete. The reflection waited. The night swallowed everything once more. The road ahead was empty, silent. The rest area lay behind me, still and waiting. I climbed into the car. The engine started, low and steady. I drove on alone, but the reflection, pale and patient, lingered somewhere in the glass, and I could still feel it watching. The desert stretched endlessly beneath the pale moon. Sand shifted faintly with each breath of wind. Night was heavy, pressing close, smelling of dry earth and cold stone. I stepped out of the car. Tires sank slightly in the loose sand. The air hummed around me, low, almost imperceptible. At first, I thought it was a wind, a vibration, steady, running to the soles of my shoes, crawling into my bones. It was subtle, a whisper beneath the hum of night. I crouched down, fingers brushing the cold grains, feeling them shift under my touch. The hum grew stronger, resonating through my arms, my chest, even my teeth. I pressed my ear to the sand, expecting something, a pulse, a voice, the earth itself breathing. And then silence. The hum vanished as if the world had paused. The desert air hung still. I stayed still, too still. The cold sand pressed against my cheek, grainy, sharp, almost alive. A subtle pressure nudged against my palm, soft, hesitant from beneath. I froze. It pushed back, light, deliberate, impossible. The sand trembled under my weight, yet the pressure was steady, patient. I drew my hand back slowly. The vibration lingered in my bones. The desert was quiet again, too quiet. The moonlight spread across the sand, pale and thin. Ripples of shadows stretched outward, moving like water frozen mid-wave. The hum hadn't returned. I swallowed. Dust filled my mouth. The pressure felt absent, yet its memory pressed against my chest, lingering like a heartbeat I could not stop feeling. Soft footsteps, or a trick of the wind. The sand whispered under my boots. Everything else silent. I stood, brushing the grains from my hands. The desert seemed to breathe around me. Shadows curled beneath low dunes, waiting. A distant rustle, faint, caught my attention. I turned. Nothing. The sand lay smooth, untouched. The desert hum was gone, but the memory of it and the hand beneath the surface remained, pressing, patient, watching. I stepped back toward the car. The tires crunched across dry sand. The night was indifferent, yet full of expectation. I looked back once. The dunes glowed faintly under moon, still silent. No motion, no hum, but something had touched me, and I could feel it still. The highway stretched pale and empty beneath a moonless sky. Cool desert wind swept across the asphalt, carrying the scent of dust and burnt tires. Night pressed close, quiet, heavy. I spotted him first as a shape at the edge of the road. A man, hunched slightly, jacket torn, frayed at the cuffs. He walked the shoulder, slow, deliberate. I slowed the car. The tires hummed against the asphalt, matching the rhythm of my pulse. He didn't look up. I rolled down the window. The wind rushed in, carrying the dry scent of the desert. I motioned to him. He paused, tilted his head slightly, then climbed in, silent. The car felt heavier with him inside. Leather creaked beneath his weight. The air smelled faintly of smoke, damp earth, something else I couldn't name. He stared straight ahead. Not at me, not at the road, just forward. I tried to speak. A cough, a half-formed question. Nothing came. The desert outside pressed close. Shadows long and thin under the faint starlight. Minutes passed, or hours. Time stretched, slow and pliant. The hum of the engine filled every corner of the car, and I noticed his eyes in the rear-view mirror. Glass. Mirrors. Not reflecting the car. Not reflecting me. The asphalt, the lines of the highway, the desert beyond, they were gone. Empty. Only desert, stretching endlessly into itself. Nothing else. I blinked. The reflection didn't change. His eyes stayed pale, flat, unblinking, swallowing the space around them. The jacket rustled softly as he shifted. Breath faint, almost imperceptible. The hum of the tires against the road felt distant, muted. I tried to look away. My hands tightened on the wheel. Every nerve in my body screamed to stop, to move, to vanish. But he remained, silent and still, eyes fixed ahead, yet reflecting a world that wasn't ours. The desert in the mirror was empty, too empty. A soft sigh, or wind slipping through the open window. I couldn't tell. The car smelled of dust and cold leather. Shadows curled beneath the dashboard, reaching for nothing. I whispered his name. No answer. Only the hum, only the desert. Minutes stretched. I could feel the weight of his gaze in the seat behind me, pressing against my spine. Time itself seemed to fold inward, quiet, expectant. I glanced again. The mirrors didn't show me, didn't show the road. Only the empty desert. Infinite. I exhaled slowly, tasting dust in my mouth. The car moved forward, tires crunching over asphalt. He didn't flinch, didn't blink. The wind shifted. Cold air brushed my neck. The hum of the tires was steady, dull, hypnotic. I realized then I had no idea where we were going, or if it mattered. His eyes stayed mirrors, swallowing everything behind me, leaving only the road ahead, pale and empty. I drove on. The highway stretched endless. The desert waited, and he rode silently, glass-eyed, beside me. The motel sat at the edge of the highway. Neon letters long burnt out. The air smelled of dust, rust, and faded paint. I walked slowly along the cracked concrete. The wind whispered through the empty parking lot. Every step felt heavier than the last. Room number 8 caught my eye. The door was slightly ajar. A sliver of pale light slipped out into the hall. I hesitated. The hallway smelled faintly of mildew and old carpet. My fingers brushed the doorframe, cold, rough, alive in a way I didn't expect. Inside, the room was still. Shadows pooled in the corners, stretching thin across the cracked linoleum. On the bed rested a suitcase. It was closed, but it hummed faintly, a soft, steady vibration that seemed to move through the air and into my chest. I leaned closer. Dust stirred under my fingertips as I reached out. The metal latch was cold, almost metallic against my skin. The lights flickered, softly at first, like a slow pulse, then stronger, trembling, reflecting in the corners of the room. The suitcase shifted, a fraction at first, then again more deliberate, as if it had weight beyond its own. I stepped back, heart thumping, breath catching. The hum grew louder, resonating in my bones. Shadows stretched across the ceiling. The air smelled faintly of ozone and something older, wet and earthy. I could feel it moving beneath the suitcase, patient, waiting. I placed my hand lightly on it again. It didn't feel solid, yet it resisted, pushing back. The lights flickered once more. The hum seemed to respond, pulsing with each heartbeat. I wanted to step away, but curiosity held me there, pressed into the air like the weight of the room itself. Dust swirled under the faint light, whispering across the floor. The suitcase moved again, slow, deliberate, not falling, not sliding, floating almost above the bed. I drew a slow breath. The hum softened slightly, almost like a sigh. The shadows retreated a fraction, folding into corners. The room was empty, yet I could feel the weight of it everywhere, against my chest, under my hands, and the soft creak of the floorboards. I stepped back fully. The suitcase remained on the bed, humming faintly. The lights flickered once more, then settled, dim and steady. I didn't open it. I didn't move closer again. The room waited. I walked back into the hallway. Dust swirled under my shoes. The door to number 8 hung slightly ajar. still humming softly, still alive in its quiet way. The motel was empty. The wind whispered through the cracked windows. I left the hum behind, pressed into the silence, carrying the memory of its weight. The highway stretched dark and empty. Night pressed close, thick with dust and the faint scent of asphalt. My hands gripped the wheel tighter, the hum of the tires steady beneath me. In the distance, a glow appeared. Soft, pale, almost inviting. A billboard, flickering in the darkness. I drove toward it. The desert smelled dry, bitter, carrying the tang of metal from long-abandoned power lines. Shadows shifted under moonlight, stretching thin across the cracked road. The closer I got, the taller it seemed. At first, normal height, then taller, impossibly tall. The glow reached higher than any pole could support, stretching into the sky. I slowed. The air felt heavier here, as if pressing down to the car roof. Wind whispered through the open window, carrying the faint hum of electricity or something like it. I stared. No poles, no support. The billboard hung in the air, floating, impossible against the black sky. My breath caught. Dust from the road swirled under the tires. I could feel the weight of it in my chest, a pressure that wasn't mine. The letters glowed softly, pale and shifting. I tried to focus on the words, but they blurred, stretched, bending toward me as if alive. The hum grew faint, resonating under my feet, in the metal of the car. The billboard pulsed with each heartbeat I could feel in my chest. Shadows from the desert reached upward, curling toward it. I blinked. The closer I came, the larger it became. A monolith suspended above nothing, floating, patient. The sky seemed smaller around it, folding in on itself. I swallowed. The air smelled faintly metallic, sharp, like a wire sparking in the dark. I could feel something, watching from the glow. I tried to look away. The billboard's edges blurred, melting into the night. It wasn't just above the road. It was everywhere. The hum softened, almost tender, yet impossible. I could feel it in my teeth, in the tips of my fingers. My chest pressed against the seatbelt, tight, anxious. I passed beneath it, or thought I did. The glow lingered above, impossibly tall, waiting, patient. Shadows curled under the roadside rocks, reaching but never touching. The road stretched on. The desert remained silent. But the memory of the floating billboard pressed into my mind, tall, impossible, and still watching. I drove on, alone. The hum faded, leaving only the air, heavy with expectation. The desert stretched endless under the moon. Cool wind brushed across the asphalt, carrying dust and faint metallic tangs from the dry earth. Night pressed close, still, heavy. At first, I thought it was a shadow along the roadside, a pale shape moving, flickering in the corner of my vision. A dog. It trotted alongside the car. No leash, no owner. White fur catching the moonlight, almost luminous against the dark road. I glanced in the side mirror. Its eyes, expressionless, faintly glowing, locked onto me. There was nothing behind them, nothing warm, nothing familiar. I pressed the accelerator. The tires hummed against the asphalt. Steady. The dog matched me stride for stride. I glanced again. Still there. Ears stiff, body low, tail straight. It trotted, calm, patient, unblinking. The desert smelled dry, bitter, carrying a faint scent of sweat and dust. Wind brushed across my skin, carrying the faint rustle of the animal's paws against gravel. The hum of the tires and the wind felt too loud, too close. I tried to turn. Curves of the highway stretched in under the moon. The dog kept pace, unyielding, its eyes locked on mine. Every mile it seemed closer, yet somehow not. It was patient, watching. I slowed and sped up. It mirrored me exactly. The pale light of its eyes reflected in my mirrors, swallowing the road behind me. Shadows curled beneath roadside rocks. The desert air smelled faintly metallic, like ozone. The dog's fur shifted with the wind, yet it remained impossibly clean, pale, untarnished by dust. I swallowed hard, heart thumping, breath shallow. The night stretched around us, endless and indifferent. I tried to look away, glanced at the horizon, at the faint lights of distant highways. But it stayed, silent, unmoving except for its steady trot. I felt a shift in the air, cool, deliberate, as if the desert itself leaned closer, pressing against the tires and the hood, pressing against my chest. The dog's eyes reflected nothing but the road ahead. No desert, no car, no me. Just empty space, infinite, patient. I exhaled slowly, tasting dust on my lips. The hum of the engine merged with the whisper of wind through the tires. Every muscle tense. The road stretched on. Tires hummed against asphalt. The dog trod beside me, unblinking, unchanging. I wanted it gone. I tried to turn onto a side road. The dog followed. The desert whispered. Shadows shifted, thin and cold across the ground. The dog stayed patient, eternal, its eyes fixed and glowing faintly under the moon. I drove on. The asphalt stretched empty ahead. The desert breathed around me, and the white dog trotted beside me, always beside me, silent, patient, watching. The desert stretched flat and endless under a pale moon. Wind swept over dry sand, carrying the faint scent of burnt earth and dust. The air was heavy, quiet, pressing close. I spotted it first from a distance. A shimmer across the asphalt, a dark circle, faintly glowing, something off in the still night. I slowed the car. Tires hummed against the road, soft, low. The desert smelled faintly metallic, like charred wires, like fire long past. The ground looked wrong. Burnt, blackened, melted asphalt curling into sand. Yet no debris, no twisted metal, no shards, nothing recognizable. I stepped out, boots crunching against gravel. The air felt thick, hot, though the night was cold. Dust swirled around my ankles, carrying the faint scent of smoke. The circle pulsed softly. Dim light rippled across the desert floor like a heartbeat beneath the sand. I knelt closer. No debris, no wreckage, just a scorch mark, stretching wide and circular, edges feathering into dust. I touched the ground lightly. Heat pressed against my fingers. The pulsing, soft, steady, alive. The wind whispered through the dry brush. Shadows pulled at the edges of the circle, stretching thin and curling like smoke. I could feel it in my chest, weight, pressure, expectation. I stepped back. The circle pulsed again, dim light spilling across my boots. No explanation, nothing I recognized. The desert waited, patient, silent. I bent closer again. The sand beneath my fingers shifted, soft and grainy. The light pulsed in rhythm with something I couldn't name. Heartbeat? Breath? Both. A distant rustle. The wind or movement just beyond my vision. I turned. Nothing. The circle hummed faintly, almost tender, almost deliberate. The desert held its breath. Every nerve of my body screamed to leave, but my feet stayed planted. I felt the air press against my skin, cold and dry. The pulse beneath the scorched ground seemed to reach up, brushing my bones. Silence swallowed the highway behind me, the night stretching thin. I exhaled slowly, tasting dust and burnt metal in my mouth. The circle pulsed once more, soft, rhythmic, waiting. I took a step back, boots crunching against sand, gravel shifting under weight. The desert seemed to fold around the circle, quiet, infinite. I glanced back at the road. The asphalt stretched empty, moonlight washing over it pale and cold. The circle pulsed again, faint and patient. I didn't move closer again. The desert waited, silent, patient, holding its strange, impossible weight. The hum faded. The light dimmed, leaving only shadows and the soft ripple of desert wind. I stepped back into the car, leaving the scorched circle behind. The tires hummed against the road. The night swallowed everything. But the memory of that pulse beneath the desert floor lingered, soft, insistent, alive. The road stretched long and empty. Night pressed close, carrying the scent of dust and asphalt, faint and metallic. My tires hummed against the blacktop. Steady, hypnotic. I noticed them first, black trucks, lined up like shadows along the desert road. No markings, no lights except faint reflections in the moon. They moved slowly, almost gliding ahead of me. I kept my distance. The air smelled faintly of hot metal and dry earth. Wind whispered across the hood of the car, brushing my hands, carrying the dry rustle of desert brush. Blinking, I glance again. The truck's gone, vanished. Only the taillights remained, faint, hovering in the air, suspended above the asphalt like glowing embers trapped in darkness. I slowed. The hum of the tires felt louder now, echoing through the car. The desert seemed to press in, stretching, folding around the lights. I tried to look closer. The lights shifted, but there was no shape behind them. No trucks, no shadows, just glowing points, patient, still unblinking. The air smelled faintly of ozone, sharp and metallic. Shadows curled under the roadside rocks, thin and twitching. I could feel the weight of the lights, hovering, pressing through my chest. I blinked again. The lights moved slightly, as if drifting forward, keeping pace with me. The desert was silent, empty, indifferent. I exhaled slowly. Dust filled my mouth. The hum of the tires was steady, soft, but my chest felt tight with expectation. I glanced at the rear-view mirror. Shadows stretched into the night. The lights lingered, floating, unanchored. No trucks, nothing solid. The wind shifted. Cold air brushed my skin, carrying the faint scent of smoke and hot metal. Every sense felt sharpened. Waiting, I pressed the accelerator. The lights moved forward too, keeping pace. The desert seemed to stretch longer, thinner, folding under the black sky. I tried to look away, turned my eyes to the horizon, to the faint shimmer of distant stars. But the light stayed, patient, silent, watching. I slowed again, tires crunching lightly over gravel. The air smelled faintly of dust and ozone, carrying the weight of something unseen. Time felt strange. The lights pulsed faintly, almost breathing, hovering, waiting. I blinked once more. The lights shifted, still there, still suspended in space. No trucks, no drivers, no sound except the hum of the tires and my shallow breath. I kept moving forward. The road stretched endlessly. The desert waited. The floating taillights followed. Silent, patient, and impossibly still. The gas station sat pale under flickering neon. Night pressed heavy, the air dry and cold, carrying the faint smell of fuel and asphalt. The parking lot was empty, cracked, shadows pooling beneath the lights. I stepped inside. The hum of the fridge and distant pumps filled the quiet. Every breath tasted faintly of gasoline and dust. I walked toward the bathroom. The door hung slightly ajar. Locks broken, rusted, swinging gently in the draft. The lights flickered. A pale rhythm, soft and uneven. The hum of electricity felt thin, fragile. I pushed the door fully open. The air inside smelled damp and faintly of cleaning chemicals. Mirrors fogged, edges curling with condensation. It was empty. Cold tiles beneath my feet, soft echo of movement. No one else. And then whispers, soft, low, indistinct, curling from behind the stalls. Breath-like, patient, deliberate. I froze. The locks rattled faintly in the breeze. The fog mirrors reflected only me, pale and small, alone in the fluorescent light. I took a step closer. Whispers followed, curling through the air. No movement, no shadow. The tiles underfoot were slick, cold. I could feel the hum of electricity in the walls, vibrating against my chest. The bathroom smelled faintly of mildew and something older, wet and metallic. I leaned toward the nearest stall. Nothing, just a faint echo of breath, almost like my own, repeating, layered over itself. The light flickered again. Shadows shifted at the edges, curling around pipes and corners. The whispering paused, then resumed, softer, insistent. I stepped back. The air pressed in, cool, still, expectant. I could feel the silence vibrating beneath the flickering hum. The mirrors fogged further. My reflection blurred, doubled. I blinked, and the whisper seemed to press closer, brushing along the walls, curling over tiles. I swallowed. Footsteps, soft, deliberate, echoed behind me. Or perhaps it was my own, delayed, ghosted. I turned. Nothing. The stalls were empty, locks dangling, broken. Still, I exhaled slowly, tasting dust and faint chemicals. The whispers lingered in the corners of my mind, soft, patient, unyielding. I left the bathroom. The hum of the gas station returned, steady, indifferent. Outside, the lot was empty again. The lights flickered one last time. The mirrors fogged. Still, I walked back to the car, carrying the echo of whispers behind me. The silent weight of being watched, alone, in the night. The desert stretched endless beneath a pale, silver moon. Wind swept over the sand, carrying the faint scent of dust and heat. The air felt heavy, still, as if waiting. In the distance, lights shimmered, soft, golden, fragile against the dark. A skyline, or something that looked like one, rising from the flat desert floor. I drove closer. Tires hummed low against the asphalt, steady, hypnotic. The air smelled faintly metallic, sharp, like something burning far away. The city shimmered, impossible, flickering. Buildings tall and thin, windows glowing like embers. It seemed alive, breathing under the night sky. I slowed. The lights danced in rhythm with my pulse. Shadows stretched thin across the road, curling like smoke. I stepped out. Sand pressed cool against my boots. The hum of the tires faded. The desert waited, patient. And then it began to dissolve. The skyline rippled, edges fraying. Dust lifted from the ground, swirling in soft spirals. Buildings collapsed into nothing. Streets melted into sand. The glow dimmed, folding into the desert itself. I blinked. The air smelled dry, bitter, metallic. Only one light remained. Pale, steady, unwavering. A single point of glow that didn't move, didn't fade. All else had vanished, leaving only its weight in the dark. I stepped closer. The desert air pressed against my skin, cool, heavy. Shadows twisted under the faint light, long, thin, reaching. The hum of the earth, or perhaps my own pulse, vibrated beneath my feet. The light seemed to pulse softly in response. Patient, deliberate, aware. I reached out. Dust swirled around my fingers. The glow didn't change. I turned. The desert stretched empty in every direction. No buildings. No roads. No signs of life. I exhaled slowly. The sand smelled faintly of smoke and iron. Wind brushed my face, carrying the quiet weight of the vanished city. I watched the single light. Steady, unyielding. Time stretched thin. The desert waited. I stepped back toward the car. Sand shifted underfoot. Shadows curled in the folds of dunes, patient, waiting. The skyline was gone. The desert was empty. Only that one light remained, pale and unwavering, a quiet heartbeat in the endless night. The highway stretched empty beneath a low, silver moon. Sand brushed against the tires, dry and whispering. The desert smelled faintly of dust and iron. Then the engine died. Sudden, final. The hum of tires faded, leaving only the wind and the soft creak of the car. I reached for the ignition. Nothing, just silence pressing in from all sides. The air felt heavy, cool against my skin, carrying the faint tang of asphalt and something metallic, distant. Shadows stretched thin across the sand, curling like smoke. I waited. Minutes stretched into stillness. Every heartbeat seemed loud, echoing against the empty road. Then a light appeared, brilliant, a beam piercing the desert, soft edges glowing against the sand and sky. It enveloped the car, warm, heavy, almost gentle. The air smelled faintly of ozone, of electric metal, of something vast and patient. I didn't move. The wind held its breath. Time seemed to pause. The light pulsed softly. The car vibrated faintly beneath me, a low hum matching the glow. Shadows dissolved into the brilliance. Then the engine coughed. A single, hesitant roar. Then steady again, familiar, grounding. I glanced down at the dashboard. The clock read hours later than before. Minutes stretched into something unmeasurable, leaving the night behind me. The desert lay quiet once more. Sand shifted lightly under the tires. The hum of the engine felt small, familiar, fragile against a vast stillness. I exhaled slowly. Air tasted dry and metallic. My hands gripped the wheel tighter, feeling the echo of the light, the pause, the weight of time lost. I drove on. The night held its silence, patient, indifferent. But the memory of that brilliance lingered, soft, persistent, impossible. The road stretched empty ahead. Shadows curled under the distant dunes. Time had passed, and I had been left behind. The desert stretched flat beneath a pale, cold moon. Wind whispered across the sand, carrying dust and the faint tang of dry metal. Night pressed close, heavy, silent. I glanced upward. Movement flickered against the dark sky. A flock of birds, impossibly precise, circling overhead. No water, no trees, no signs of life. Yet they moved in perfect formation, gliding, weaving, hovering. Their wings made no sound. I stopped the car. Tires hummed faintly against asphalt. The air smelled faintly metallic, like ozone after lightning. I watched them, glowing eyes of moonlight caught on black feathers. Shadows flickered over the sand below, though nothing touched the ground. The desert felt different. Breath thick, heavy, every nerve alert. The silence between movements stretched, patient and expectant. Then a subtle shift. The flock scattered. No sound, no rustle, only movement, liquid, unnatural. The sky was empty again. Vast, silent, indifferent. Nothing remained except the cold moon and the desert pressing in. I exhaled slowly. Air tasted faintly of dust and something older, faintly bitter. Shadows curled under distant dunes, stretching thin and motionless. I pressed the accelerator. The tires hummed against the road. The desert seemed heavier, patient, waiting. I glanced upward again. The sky was clear. No birds, no movement, only silence. The desert air pressed against my skin. Cool, dry, carrying the faint metallic tang of the road. My heartbeat seemed loud in the stillness. I kept moving. The asphalt stretched endlessly. Shadows pulled beneath distant dunes. The memory of their perfect formation lingered. The impossibility of soundless wings. The stillness of the desert, stretched thin beneath the empty sky. I exhaled again, breath tasting of dust and night. The road continued and the silence followed. Patient, indifferent, the highway stretched empty beneath a low, silver moon. The air smelled faintly of dust and asphalt, dry and heavy. Shadows pooled thin along the edges of the road. A sign appeared, faded, rusted, unfamiliar. It read, Route 0. I hesitated. The desert pressed close, cool against my skin, silent. The road ahead seemed normal, but the name, it felt wrong. I turned onto it. The tires hummed low against the asphalt. Wind brushed the windows, carrying dry dust and something faintly metallic. The road stretched endlessly. Every turn seemed to lead back to the same place. Shadows shifted under the pale light, curling across the pavement. I drove on. Time felt stretched, elastic. The hum of tires, steady. My own heartbeat, loud. Another sign appeared. Route 0. The same letters, the same rusted edges, as if I had never left the first one. I slowed. The desert smelled faintly of heat and iron. The sand shifted under wind, restless, patient. I tried to look for landmarks. Nothing. Only asphalt shadows and the looping road. I pressed the accelerator. The road curved again, bending in familiar ways. Every mile led back, as if the desert itself was breathing, folding in on me. The night felt heavier. Air thick against my skin, carrying the faint metallic scent of the asphalt. Shadows stretched long, patient, indifferent. The sign appeared again. Route 0. I blinked. Nothing else had changed. I exhaled slowly, breath tasting faintly of dust and night. The road continued, endless, looping, quiet. I kept moving. The tires hummed. The desert waited. Shadows curled along the dunes. The air pressed close. The sign repeated itself again, patient, unyielding, as if I had never left the first one. The desert stretched silent beneath a heavy, silver moon. Wind rolled faint across the sand, carrying the smell of dry metal and distant stone. The road felt endless, empty, patient. A red light appeared, tall, blinking, impossible against the dark, flat expanse. I slowed the car. Tires hummed low against asphalt, soft and grounding. The air tasted faintly metallic, sharp, carrying a heat I couldn't place. I stepped out. Sand pressed cool beneath my boots. shifting under the faint breeze. Shadows curled in the dunes, long and patient. The light blinked again. Closer now, seeming to pulse in rhythm with my heartbeat. I reached toward it, breath shallow, fingers tingling, and then it vanished. No glow, no outline, just desert, silent, patient, indifferent. I froze. The ground beneath me felt warm. The sand shifted slightly beneath my feet, soft impressions forming, curling. I looked down. Footprints circled me. Deliberate, unnatural, not mine, yet familiar in their weight, in the way they press the sand. The air smelled of dry earth and ozone. Every nerve stretched tight. I could feel the desert breathing, patient, waiting. I moved. Footsteps followed, or perhaps preceded me. Soft, careful, unseen. The hum of the car seemed distant now, disconnected from the world around me. I glanced around. Nothing. Only shadows curling over dunes, twisting in the pale light of the moon. The warmth of the ground pulsed faintly. Footprints pressed in circles, then shifted as I stepped. Always around me, always patient. I exhaled slowly. Breath tasted dry, metallic, sharp. The desert seemed heavier, the night thicker, pressing close. I turned, looking for the light again. Nothing, only the shifting sand, the soft indentations, the echo of movement without source. The air hummed faintly. Shadows stretched thin and long. The footprints seemed to respond to my own, moving as if alive, deliberate, careful. I stepped backward. The warmth of the desert pressed beneath my boots. The sand smelled faintly of metal and old earth. The red light did not return, yet the footprints circled still, soft, patient, unyielding. I exhaled again. The desert waited, silent and heavy. I felt every heartbeat, every breath, every shadow press close. I climbed back into the car. Tires hummed, low and grounding against asphalt. The desert remained, patient, watching. The road stretched ahead. Shadows curled in the dunes. Footprints pressed faintly in the sand. And I knew the light, though gone, had left its weight behind. The rest stop smelled of dry asphalt and faint gasoline. Neon light flickered weakly, pale and tired against the cracked pavement. The night was still heavy, carrying the faint tang of dust and metal. I noticed a box tucked behind a bench. Wood worn, edges splintered. Curiosity pressed softly against my ribs. I opened it. Inside, Polaroids lay stacked. Yellowed, curling, frozen in the quiet light. The first photo showed a stretch of desert road. The asphalt gleamed faintly in the afternoon sun. And there, in the distance, my car, exactly as it sat now, parked alone, shadowed. I pulled another photo. The same road, the same car, each frame slightly different, each image impossible. Dust drifted across the lot. Air carried faint ozone, metallic and sharp. The photos felt warm in my hands, alive with the hum of something patient. I knelt, sifting through the stack. The desert twisted behind the images, endless, flat, silent. Each Polaroid felt like a memory I hadn't lived yet, or a dream repeating. A cold breeze brushed my neck. Shadows shifted under the pale neon. I could hear my own breath, shallow, steady, grounding. The car appeared in every frame, always in the background, always alone, always waiting. I traced the edge of a photo. Paper crackled faintly beneath my fingertips. The air smelled faintly of dust and ink, metallic and dry. I held one to the light. The horizon stretched thin. Shadows pulled in impossible angles, bending across the road. And my car, frozen in that impossible distance, seemed to hum softly. I exhaled slowly, breath tasting dry, faintly bitter. The rest stop felt colder, emptier. The night stretched endlessly, patient and watching. I stacked the photos back in the box, fingers lingering on the edges, feeling the faint static of their presence. The desert beyond the lot seemed to ripple softly in the pale light. I glanced around. No one else was here, only asphalt, shadows, and the hum of distant wind. The photos stayed in my mind, the car in every frame, the desert road looping endlessly, the feeling of being seen, remembered, caught in stillness I could not touch. I rose slowly. Dust brushed my boots, cool and fine. The box sat in silence, patient, holding the images like a secret. I walked back to the car. Tires hummed against asphalt. The night waited. The desert stretched wide, silent, impossible. And the memory of the photos lingered, soft, persistent, as if the road itself had been keeping watch all along. The night was thick, velvet over the desert. Air smelled faintly of dust and hot asphalt, carried in slow, heavy waves. Stars hung pale and distant, scattered across black sky. Static hummed softly in the car. I hadn't touched a radio all evening, yet a voice cut through the hiss, low, deliberate, calling my name. I froze. The tires hummed beneath me. Wind brushed the windows, carrying the faint scent of metal and dust. The voice spoke again, insistent, patient. Keep driving. It whispered, soft and impossible. I blinked. The desert stretched endlessly. Shadows pulled thin, curling over dunes. My hand hovered over the dashboard. Nothing had changed. No radio. No transmitter. Only static and that faint hum. The voice returned, clearer this time. Faintly metallic, echoing off the asphalt. Every word seemed to press against the inside of my skull. I exhaled slowly, breath tasting of dust and heat. The air felt heavier, close and patient, like it had been waiting. I drove on, tires humming low, steady. The desert seemed to fold around me, silent, endless. The voice followed, always just behind the hiss, whispering in rhythm with the hum of the road. Every word urging, patient, insistent. I glanced into the rearview mirror. Shadows stretched in the sand. Nothing moved, yet the air felt full of presence, of quiet insistence. The static shifted, soft rustling, almost like footsteps pressing into the desert around me. The voice murmured again, "Don't stop." I pressed my foot lightly on the accelerator. The tires hummed faster, steady, grounding. The desert stretched ahead, patient, indifferent, watching. I exhaled. Wind brushed the windows, dry and sharp. The voice faded briefly, leaving only static and the hum of the road. Then it returned, closer now, almost inside the car. "Keep driving." I drove on. The night pressed in. Shadows pulled in dunes. The hum of tires and static wrapped around me, soft, insistent. The desert seemed to breathe, air heavy with dust and faint ozone. Every mile stretched endlessly. I didn't stop. I didn't turn off the engine. The voice had said to keep moving, and I could feel in the quiet press of the night that the desert itself had listened. The horizon shimmered faintly, pale under the desert moon. Air smelled of hot sand and distant metal, carrying a quiet stillness. The tires hummed low, steady beneath me. I saw it first as a shadow, movement far ahead, a motorbike, alone, keeping pace with the car. Its engine was soft, almost silent. The wind pressed against my skin, cool and dry. The faint hum of tires seemed louder against the still night. I slowed. The bike mirrored my motion. Every turn, every shift of the road, it followed. The headlights didn't reveal much, just the outline of a figure, helmet dark against the desert. The air smelled faintly of dust and oil, subtle, pressing against my senses. I pulled over, heart pressing slow and heavy. The sand crunched softly beneath my tires. The motorbike approached, silent but deliberate, its rider fixed forward, motionless, constant, helmet reflecting nothing. Nothing but darkness. Not a mirror, not a reflection. Just empty black, smooth, infinite. The bike passed. I watched it slice through the pale night, humming faintly over the sand. The wind carried a dry, metallic tang, almost like ozone. I stayed by the roadside, breath tasting of dust and heat. The desert stretched endlessly, patient, indifferent. The sound of my heartbeat pressed softly in my ears. Sand shifted lightly with a faint breeze. Shadows pulled thin, curling over the dunes. The bike vanished into the horizon, yet I could feel it lingering. A presence pressed gently at the edges of awareness, patient, quiet. I exhaled slowly, fingers gripping the wheel. The hum of the tires beneath me, low, grounding, the only thing real. The night held itself steady. The moon pale and constant. Shadows stretching across endless asphalt and sand. I drove on, silence pressing against every nerve. The image of the dark helmet stayed with me, a figure that reflected nothing, yet seemed to know everything. The desert waited, empty, patient, and I kept moving, heart steady, breath shallow, alone in the vastness. The desert stretched wide beneath a pale moon. Air was dry, carrying the faint scent of stone and dust. The tires whispered over asphalt that shimmered faintly under the night. Far off, a shape rose. Tall, narrow, solid. A clock tower. Its stone glimmered silver in the moonlight. The tick of its hands carried softly across the desert. Slow, steady, hypnotic. I stopped the car. Breath shallow, tasting of dry sand and metal. The sound filled the space between the dunes, stretching to my ears. Blinking, I looked again. The tower was gone. Nothing but sand, empty and patient. The silence pressed in. And yet, the ticking remained. I touched the dashboard. The sound vibrated beneath my fingers. Inside the car, soft, deliberate, impossible. The wind shifted, carried with it a faint scent of old stone and rust. The tick persisted, counting moments that did not exist. I leaned back in the seat, eyes on the horizon. Shadows pulled thin across the dunes. The desert felt different, denser, closer. Every grain of sand pressing softly, patiently against the tires, the metal, my skin. The clock ticked. Inside the car now, but echoing the tower I had seen. A rhythm both familiar and alien. I touched my ears. The sound was in my bones. A heartbeat doubled, slow and methodical. I tried to blink it away. The desert remained the same, empty, patient, and yet the ticking followed me, breath shallow, wind soft against my skin. The asphalt shimmered faintly, ghost-like under the moon. I drove on. Each second counted in the tick. The tower was gone, yet present. The desert swallowed sound and shadow alike, sand shifting faintly beneath tires. The hum of the engine grounding me almost. The ticking persisted. A soft, constant pulse inside the car, counting time that felt both endless and impossible. I exhaled slowly, fingers tightening around the wheel, eyes fixed forward, yet part of me aware, watching the shadows, waiting for the shape to return. The desert remained patient, silent, vast, infinite, and the clock ticked, steady and unyielding, beneath my hands. The road stretched dark ahead. Night air pressed against the glass, heavy with sand and dust. The hum of the engine was low, almost comforting. Then it shifted, a weight in the seat behind me. Soft, impossible. I froze, breath sharp in my chest, tasting dry metal and desert air. The mirror caught it first. Pale, silent, eyes that reflected nothing but shadow. I turned slowly. Empty, nothing. The weight remained, pressing softly against the seat, shifting when I adjusted. I could feel it, though it should not be there. The car smelled faintly of old leather and something colder. The hum of the engine seemed louder now, more insistent. The desert outside whispered in static, distant and unreal. I stole another glance in the mirror. It returned, just for a moment, pale and still, watching me, every nerve tense, hands gripping the wheel too tightly. The road ahead stretched endlessly. The light from the dashboard flickered. Shadows stretched across the seat, brushing the figure. It did not move, yet filled the space entirely. I blinked, alone again, the weight gone, though the memory pressed like fog in my chest. The desert air seeped through the slightly open window. Rustling sand whispered against the tires. The quiet felt sharper, emptier. The mirror reflected only me now. Still, a sense of presence lingered. Cold, silent, patient. I exhaled slowly. The soft vibrations of the car beneath my hands felt different, heavier. The road hummed, indifferent to the small terror inside. I could feel it behind me, not moving, not leaving, a shadow in absence, watching. The hum of the engine carried me forward. Fingers brushed against the back seat, touching only emptiness. The desert stretched endless beyond the windshield. Each blink threatened its return. Every glance a question without answer. I drove on, Heart shallow, breath shallow, knowing I was not alone. Fog clung to the desert, thick and cool against my skin. The tires whispered along the asphalt, soft and insistent. Night hung heavy, smelling faintly of dust and distant oil. Then I saw it, a glow off the road, warm and pale. Bright lights, almost welcoming. I slowed. The station appeared solid at first, colors flickering faintly. Warm hum in the air, almost like a breath. Closer now, I noticed something impossible. No doors, no windows. The lights flickered again. Inside, shadows moved, or maybe the light played tricks. Static in the air, sharp against the stillness. I stepped out, the gravel crunching beneath my shoes. The fog curled around my ankles. The warm glow washed over me, but I could feel nothing solid. I leaned forward. The lights pulsed softly. No handle, no glass, nothing to enter. A hum began, low, vibrating through the soles of my feet. Faint scent of burnt metal and something sweet lingering. I touched the wall, or where I thought the wall should be. Nothing. Air and light, nothing tangible. The desert felt quieter here, the road behind swallowed by fog. Only the station's glow remained. I blinked. The lights flickered again, revealing faint shapes, or just illusions playing across my vision. A soft, hollow sound tickled the edges of hearing, like someone walking inside, yet impossible to know. No doors, no windows, only the glow. I pulled back. The hum followed, gentle but persistent. Footsteps against gravel, or just my own heart echoing. Curiosity pressed me closer, the glow inviting but impossible to touch. The desert's cold breath brushing my face, soft and indifferent. I reached forward, fingers brushed light. Nothing. The air shimmered around me, thick and strange. A sense of being watched, patient and still. Shadows moving behind shadows, yet no form. I stepped back, fog curling higher. The glow remained, unmoving and endless. The hum lingered in my chest, fading only when I retreated. Alone again, the road swallowed by darkness. The station, impossible, untouchable, waiting beyond the fog. The desert was quiet, heavier than the night should allow. Cool air brushed against my arms. The ground smelled of dry stone and old heat. Then I saw it, a faint glow beneath the sand. Pulse soft, irregular, like something breathing under the earth. I crouched closer, fingers hovering above the sand, hesitant. The light shifted, like it sensed me. It was warm, not the warmth of the sun, but living heat, soft and vibrating through my knees. As I pressed closer, I knelt fully. The grain slipped beneath my hands. The glow spread like water, seeping into stone, touching my skin. The desert smelled different now. Metallic, sweet, almost like blood mixed with jasmine. My breath caught, shallow and rapid. I pressed a palm against the sand. The light flowed under me, spreading across my fingers. Warm, living, insistent. A soft vibration rose through the soles of my feet. The ground moved beneath me, or I imagined it. The glow pulsed faster, brighter, and yet still subtle. I froze, alone with the light, with the hum that had no source. It was patient, silent, watching. The sand slipped further, warm under my knees. The glow licked upward, tracing the curves of my hands. The hum wrapped around me, a quiet heartbeat beneath the desert floor. I tried to pull away. The glow spread, faintly resisting. Soft warmth following, gentle but unavoidable. A shadow moved in the corner of my vision. Not a shape, not a figure. Only a darkness against the faint light beneath the sand. The wind carried a whisper, almost a voice, or just a hum of life under the dunes. I couldn't tell if I was hearing it or feeling it. I stood slowly. The glow receded, pulling back into the earth beneath me. The desert became still again, yet the warmth lingered in my palms. The soft pulse in the ground remained, distant but undeniable. I could not tell if it waited, or if it had been waiting for me all along. Alone, the night stretched around me. The stars pale, distant, unblinking. The desert breathing beneath my feet. I stepped back. The glow dimmed entirely, leaving only the empty sand and the faint hum fading into silence. The desert had returned to its normal quiet. But I knew it was alive beneath. The night was thin and dry, the air carrying the scent of asphalt and distant dust. I gripped the wheel, knuckles pale under the faint glow of the dashboard. The highway stretched behind me, empty, nothing but black tarmac and the soft rustle of wind through the scrub. Silence heavy in the car, pressing against my ears. I glanced in the rear-view mirror. Headlights. Sudden. Bright. Pale. Too close. No sound. No engine. Just light. My breath caught. I blinked. They were gone. The mirror reflected only empty road again. The black line of asphalt curling into the distance. Yet beneath the surface of the glass, a faint pulse remained. Soft, like the beat of a heart beneath a sheet of ice. I turned slightly. The highway stayed empty. I looked back again. Headlights filled the mirror once more. Not one, but many, hovering silent, unmoving. The pulse in the glass quickened. Or maybe it was mine. A warmth creeping into my chest, spreading into my fingers. Static crawling along the edges of my vision. I blinked. Again empty. The headlights vanished, leaving only the faint glow humming softly in the rear view. It didn't disappear entirely. It lingered, patient, watching. I could feel it, almost tactile, in the small reflection. Cold, bright, unplaceable. The air inside the car thickened, carrying a faint smell of ozone and dust. Every shadow seemed to stretch longer. I breathed slowly, trying to calm the panic humming beneath my ribs. The pulse beneath the glass continued, unchanging. A heartbeat I could not locate, yet could not ignore. I kept driving. The road stretched on, silent, barren. The headlights stayed gone, but the glow remained. I glanced one last time. Empty, and yet the faint pulse. A rhythm I could feel, but not see. The car moved forward. The desert wrapped around me, dark and unending. The highway behind was empty, and yet not empty at all. Dawn pressed pale light over the desert. The horizon glowed like a faint ember, soft and trembling. I turned off the highway. A rest stop appeared ahead, bathed in artificial warmth, its light spilling over cracked asphalt and still sand. The air smelled faintly of fuel and dust. I stepped out, boots crunching on gravel, the quiet pressing against my ears. The doors slid open silently. Inside, every seat was occupied. Motionless figures. They faced the same direction. Backs straight, heads level, hands resting neatly on laps. I could feel the cold radiating from them, though the room's lights glowed warmly. I moved forward slowly. Each step echoed, soft and uneven against the tiled floor. The hum of the fluorescent bulbs overhead felt too loud, buzzing against the pulse of my own heart. I reached the center aisle. Figures not breathing, not blinking, eyes hidden, faces pale and smooth in the light. The smell of old paper and varnish mixed with the faint metallic tang of the air. I swallowed, my throat dry. Something shifted, a subtle motion at first, a tilt of a head. Then all at once they turned, slow, deliberate. Every figure pivoted to face me. The room went still. Silence filled every corner, thick and pressing. And then the lights went out. Sudden, complete. Darkness rolled over me like a soft blanket, but heavier, like it had weight. I could still see the shapes in the faint dawn light, filtering through the windows. The glow of the desert outside, muted and distant, but the motionless figures remained, now shadowed and still. I stepped back. The floor hummed beneath my feet, a low vibration, almost imperceptible, as if the building itself was breathing. I breathed slowly. Cold air brushed my face through the open doors. The faint smell of dust and metal lingered, tinged with something else, something I could not name. I turned to leave. The lights remained off. The silence followed me. Soft footsteps echoed, though I was alone. The desert waited beyond the doors, pale and empty. The rest stop behind me hummed with quiet energy. I felt eyes on my back, but when I dared to glance, there was nothing. I climbed into the car. The engine hummed to life, familiar and low. Outside, The world shifted from night to dawn. The figures did not move again. The light would not return. But I could still feel their gaze lingering, settled in the quiet corners of my mind. I drove away. The road stretched endlessly ahead, and the desert swallowed the rest stop behind me. The sun rose fully now. Warmth touched my skin. Yet the hum, the weight, the sense of being watched remained.